I don't mean to be dramatic, but has Drake's legacy ever been more on the line than it is at this very moment? I know many folks are tired of people bringing up the beef whenever talking about Drake and Kendrick Lamar right now, but I'm sorry, that's just the reality of how things are at the moment. We are fresh off of Kendrick Lamar getting all of Aubrey's coworkers, including Taylor Swift, to scream A minor at the top of their lungs just 1 week before telling 133 million Super Bowl viewers that he hears he likes them young. All of this begged the question, what's next? Will Drake drop some mid and let this tomfoolery on his name continue? Or can he flip the script and remind the world why we once fell in love with him in the first place? That's what we're here to find out on his latest collab record, Some Sexy Songs For You with PartyNextDoor. Once I say that title out loud, it does make me feel a bit silly to call this a legacy-defining moment, as it's more so just a horny little R&B side project with his neighbor from Drake, but I do still feel like it's a big opportunity for him to get some reputation back. So without further ado, it's time for us to dive in and rank every single sexy song on here, starting off with CN Tower.
The city is pretty when it's dead, just like a flower.
Toronto, or more specifically Mississauga, already got some love on the album cover with the swirly buildings, shout out to them, but it's the main dog, the big CN itself, who gets the spotlight on the opener. Rapping about the changing colors of the CN Tower should be corny, and I'm sure for some of you it is, but this song is absolutely hitting for me. And if you don't understand, it's probably because you've never been in the city when it's dead like a flower. Like, I'm sorry, it is what it is. Disclaimer, I actually live like an hour away from Toronto, but you already know I'm claiming that shit for this album. What are you gonna do about it? Then Mr. Party comes in on a subtle beat change that instantly teleported me back to 2013-14 P&D vibes in the best way possible. I didn't even catch this on first listen, but that part samples Lollipop by Lil Wayne, and once you hear it, you just can't miss it.
The city is pretty when it's dead, just like
I think this intro sets the tone for the album and the vibes we can expect to hear, scoring it a cool 7.5.
now shorties call me Drake, not Aubrey Graham. Damn.
On Mothballs, Aubrey and Party do a very similar thing they did on the intro by having the beat switch for Party to come in, and it's not going to be the last time they do that on this album either. But to be honest, it works yet again for me with its nice, moody sound, and both of them bringing some effort and energy to their verses. I will say I'm definitely biased, as late night Drake is one of my favorite genres of music when it's done well, so yeah. Just to clarify, I'm referring to the late night Drake sound itself, and not necessarily the horny bars. Like, I do wish that dial was turned down way more on this album. But on this track at least, I think it is done pretty tastefully compared to some of the others we'll get to. And overall, this was always going to be the theme of the album. Like, I can't really be mad at getting what was advertised. So I'm going to try and not complain about it for the rest of the video. I'm going to give this track another 7.5.
Something about you.
Something About You sees Drake go 3 for 3 with the beat choices on this project so far. I don't know, I'm really digging the production on this album. Like, I just feel like there was more time and attention spent to the details. It feels more polished to me than like 80% of the tracks on For All the Dogs. I think my bar was just so low after the boring ass production we got for the majority of that album that the effort here was pleasantly surprising. Ultimately, we have to thank Kendrick for lighting a fire up Aubrey's ass and getting him to stop with the half-assedness that he was getting away with for so long. In terms of the vocals, both Drake and Party have some really solid moments on their respective hooks after building into them throughout their verses. We do also get some sensual back and forth bars in the middle. How do they make that work? Like, are they both bricked up in the studio together, or like what's the situation there? I don't know, I just feel like you gotta submit your lines on separate days or something when this is the kind of subject matter you're on. Jokes aside though, I do just really like this one, maybe even a bit more than the previous two, which leads me to an 8 for Something About You.
Even if I replay,
I'm going to try and move quicker now because we have a lot of songs to get through. Crying in Chanel is okay, but it's a step below the first 3 songs for me. It's the first solo one from Drake, which shouldn't be a problem or anything, but I just don't like his vocals as much this time around. Maybe it's the production too, which I found interesting to start, but I got over it fairly quickly. Like, I could have used more. There is this sound near the end that I wanted to point out since it really reminds me of Crew Love. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but I thought it was worth pointing out. Overall though, I'm scoring Crying in Chanel a 6.5.
Girl took me for Spider-Man, Superman.
In the same way I said rapping about the CN Tower colors should be corny, so too should these superhero lines, but they get away with it, man, because this shit is hella smooth. I said I was unsure about the Crew Love connection on the previous track, but there's no mistaking the callback to the Take Care era on here with the Real Her sample used in the second half. That's one of the most underrated songs of that album for me, so using it here was an absolute W move. I'm going to give this one yet another 7.5.
Baby, I'm doing this wrong. Hold on, baby, sit.
Fun fact, Kevin Durant co-signed this song the very night the album came out as an all-time party track. I didn't know he was freaky like that because this is definitely meant to be one of the sexier songs on here, but he is onto something. It is a nice one from P&D, who's solo for the whole song, and he definitely does his thing, but I'm sorry, Katie, all-time party track is a bit high in my opinion. I think it gets just a little stale by the end, like maybe it could have used some Drizzy or something for a change of pace, but I still like it. I'm gonna give it a cool 7.
Thinking about how wrong I played. Even lost my bitch to the small town fame.
Small Town Fame is the first miss for me on this album. I was like lightly enjoying the first minute, and then it's the second beat that just really ruins things for me. I just don't think it's a very pleasant sound at all, and I think Drake's verse itself was extremely average over top of it. Overall, it kind of felt like a leftover from For All the Dogs that I just don't think needed to be on this album that is 21 songs long. I did enjoy the Hassan Phillips sound clip at the end, even though I'm normally against those kind of things. If you don't know, he's a Toronto-based comedian that I think is super jokes, so it was nice to see Drake give him some more exposure. And it makes sense with the rest of the Toronto references throughout the album. As for the score though, Small Town Fame is getting a measly 5 from me.
Please don't go out with your friends. They don't ever keep you in check.
Speaking of exposure, Drake might have just altered this Pim girl's life forever with the inclusion of this solo interlude, as she has jumped from 30,000 monthly Spotify listeners to a nice 2.4 million after this feature. Now, I will say that's a bit misleading, as so far it's all coming from this one song, but it's still super dope to see. And I think it is interesting that no one seems to know yet how Drake and Party came across her sound. Just for some more perspective, Complex Music dug up that apparently her listed price for a vocal feature before this was $150. I hope she adds a 0 or 2 after this though, once people start paying attention to the very beautiful voice she has. It reminds me of Drake's inclusion of artists like Georgia Smith and Yebba in the past, and I'm intrigued to see where things go for her from here. Now this might feel high because it's not even really a full song, but I'm going to give this one an 8.5. I just loved the moment, and her lyrics were a nice change of perspective from the male point of view we get from the rest of the album.
Shop behind still, I'm too geek for the guy. Yeah, whoa, I've been in the house, but I'm coming outside tonight.
I had to check Genius for this one, but Brian Steele is named after Young Thug's attorney, in case you were curious. And Drake is very likely referring to this tweet from Thugger in October as he raps, "Broski just hit me and said put all the beef on the side, I can't." Other than that little bit of gossip though, I don't have much to say about this one. It's definitely not my favorite. Even though Drake's rapping with some energy and tempo, it just doesn't really grip me compared to the others. It's not the worst though, I'm gonna give it a 6.
Fuck that, make the beat switch, turn the hoes up, give $1 million to him. Right now I got so many villas booked on like a...
You could just tell there's something a bit different to this one the moment it starts and the beat begins to swell up. Drake uses this time to address the aftermath of the beef and how he feels he's still standing tall despite many preying on his downfall. All before he leads us into like the 19th beat switch of the album, but I can't complain, it's super fire. It sounds like something off of Lil Uzi's Eternal A Take to me, and Drake fits on it super well, dropping some more one-liners for the rap accounts to post on their Instagram slideshows. The song then definitely takes a goofier direction near the end that I don't necessarily love, as Drake literally says, "Where's my hug at?" to the hoes. I just think it's a bit of a cringe rebuttal to say, yeah, my ops hate me, but it's okay because I hug a lot of girls at the strip club. I just don't really think that cooks the way Drake thinks it does, but it is a funny little concept. And I mean, it is pretty on brand for him in the album at this point. Like most other people, I think this was my favorite so far, but I do think there's a couple better songs to come, with Give Me a Hug getting an 8.5.
It's raining in Houston, my love. The streets are empty, mood is already...
Things slowed down a bit on the next track, Raining in Houston, but I don't mean that in a bad way. I think the first half is decent. I was again lightly enjoying things, but it's not until the beat switches that the song really kicks in. I thoroughly enjoyed the second half on here. I think Drake's vocals just really matched the spacey production, and it feels very much like a nostalgic late night car ride Drake song to me. Something about Houston just really gets Drizzy going. I love the flow he uses on here. I think it's super easy to groove along to, and it's just a vibe. Like that's all there is to it sometimes. Putting it all together though, I'm gonna say 7.5.
Doesn't say my name, but here's where you're at.
We are 12 songs in now with Lasers, and we have officially unveiled the curtain. Like there's no reading in between the lines anymore as to what this is all about. They're really telling it how it is. That's pretty much it, to be honest. Like I don't know, if you like this sort of moody sound, you're going to enjoy this track, and if it's not typically your thing, I don't think this is going to be the one that changes your mind. Vocally, I think Party and Drake sound pretty good, and it's a decent song, but it just kind of blends in with the rest, scoring a 7.
I want to meet your madre, pay my respects to your padre, mi amor.
It wouldn't be a Drake album with at least one moment of bullshit, now would it? Mi amor, I'm not the one you can't ignore. I want your phone numero, por favor. Really? Now, I'm gonna be honest though, I don't want to lie to you guys. I thought this was kind of groovy. I was very reluctantly swaying my hips. That being said, I feel like I don't really have a right to speak on it because it does kind of feel like a microaggression at times. But for me, I'm gonna give it a 6 for now. And if you think that's crazy, at least skip to the P&D part at the end. Like I'm telling you, there's something good going on there, and I won't be silent about it.
Who's calling that shit? Who's calling that shit?
Let's cut to the chase. This is the one. Time will tell as to how big this song gets. I hope it doesn't lose its appeal because of that, but as of right now, what an absolute banger, bro. I'm honestly instantly ready to put this right up there with the best of Drake's hits. Like, it's been a while since I've had this much fun listening to a Drake song. And I don't think anyone was expecting this slapper out of nowhere on track 14 of this horny R&B album. The production has this retro era sound to it that is already very much back in style right now, so that was a great move to lean into. And it just makes perfect sense with the Nokia name and the Who's Calling My Phone hook. Like, everything just fits super well. It's not the first time a Drake song lists out a bunch of random girl names. First Person Shooter quickly comes to mind as a recent example, but I don't know if it's ever sounded this infectious. Every single thing about this song just makes me want to turn up and yell, "Where the fuck the function?" By the way, when he says we got members west on the 401, I hope you realize he's talking about me. I literally live west on the 401. Just at me next time, Drake. We get yet another beat switch that I want to be mad at because I was still enjoying the first part, to be honest, but damn, that second half is just as fun. I thought the baby girl vocals was just a sample or something, but apparently it's just the producer of this track, Elkin's voice. I need to see the studio sessions for that. Like, they had to have been turning up in there. I could see myself maybe getting a bit over this song, but for now, Nokia is going straight to the top for me with a 9.5.
Girl, I can't decide if I should stay and say I tried, or I should leave and say goodbye.
Now, could someone please tell me how many rappers could follow up Nokia with something like Die Trying? Because I'm pretty sure my answer is 0, unless you want to toss fucking Post Malone or something. This song is basically just Wagwan Delilah, but if it was actually good. Like, I feel like that track walked so this one could run. I'm not fully aware on how this track is being received yet, but I imagine some people are going to hate on it. And let me just say, if you fit in that camp, like, I just don't trust you as a person. How do you not enjoy this vibe? For a lack of better words, Drake's verse and hook are just both super cute. It's like almost a happy sound, but it has this melancholic undertone to it all that just really works. It kind of does the same thing to me that Passion Fruit did so many years ago. Even though the two don't sound the same at all, there's something similar about the way they make me feel. Party's chorus delivers as well. I'm not sure if I've ever heard him sing on something like this, but it really worked. And the same could be said for Yeba's outro. It was fire. I would have been down to hear her for a bit longer, but it's chill. It's not really some groundbreaking song like I'm implying, but it just really surprised me to see something like this done so well out of nowhere on this album. I'm torn between a 9 and a 9.5, but because I'm in the mood to glaze today, I'm going to give it a second 9.5.
Somebody who loves me in the building. Somebody who feel me in the building.
The glazing is likely going to decrease for the rest of the video as I try and get through these last songs, starting with Somebody Loves Me. I just didn't love it that much, and I think it's mainly Party who's letting me down on this one. I'm sorry, I just find his part pretty annoying, to be honest, and Drake is just okay as well. Which I know is a bit weird because I've been praising them for most of the video, but I don't know, this one just wasn't hitting as hard for me this time around, and the production isn't anything special either. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but it is going to score another 5.
The concepts of you and I.
The first half of this one really reminded me of some of the more forgettable tracks of For All the Dogs, or at least the ones I'm not super into. I just don't really love Drake's singing when there isn't a more in-depth beat behind it, which is why it's the second half of this song that really saves it for me. I enjoyed the darker, eerier sound there much more, which reminds me of some early Weekend or something, and I just find Party's voice way more appealing on here than Drake's. I know it's a bit weird how I go back and forth on who I'm enjoying more, but that's just how it is sometimes. All in all, it's getting a 6.5, as I do think this final stretch of the album is a step below the rest.
Last night you tried to blow my mind, and tonight you try to do it again.
That being said, On My Way is an exception. The production is a lot more interesting again, and Party and Drake deliver a nice 1-2 punch. I really don't love some of the bars, but as a sound, it is solid. I just really like this beat. Shout out Noel. That's all I gotta say, really. I particularly like the flow Drake catches when he's telling this lady to order a nanny for the kids and come roll with the owl. I know it's a bit of an odd bar, but I'm sorry, he sounds good, don't kill me. I am on my way to score On My Way a 7.5.
I'm a Capricorn, so
What does that mean?
we don't give a shit.
After getting through 18 songs, like everyone else, I was very disappointed we hadn't heard any Ice Spice tributes yet. Like, what the hell, Drake? What are we waiting for? Luckily, the Champagne Poppy knew exactly how we were feeling and blessed us with Glorious. I'm kidding. This is up there with one of the most unnecessary songs ever from Drake, and boy, there's a lot of those in his catalog. It's basically an Ice Spice track dubbed with Drake's voice, and I think he should have let Miss Spice stick to this vibe. Party's hook also sucked ass, by the way. I'm giving this a 3.
When he's gone, let me know. When he's gone, out your mind.
When He's Gone has a lot more redeeming qualities than Glorious, but that's not saying much. It's still not really doing it for me. I think the chorus is kind of catchy, but even that is a bit odd, as the bars just make it a bit tough for me to vibe to. I feel like the only appropriate time to be listening to this is if you're like currently in the bedroom with someone who's cheating on her man. It just feels odd in any other context to me. I'll also say I think Drake's verse was okay. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best, and I'm giving this track another 6. Like I said, most of these final tracks just did not need to be on this album, increasing the runtime, except for the finale, which I'm about to get to.
Don't even know how it feels. Don't even know how it feels.
I'm not sure if it just sounds extra good because of the 2 forgettable songs before it, but luckily Drake and Party finally stick the landing with Greedy. I like this track the moment it starts. That little piano sound really did something for me, and so does the rest of the spacey atmosphere they created on this one. Drake's voice just fits so well on a sound like this for me that it really elevates the emotion in his singing. I think he sounds super passionate, and I love to hear that passion on these lyrics that have a bit more depth to them rather than the purely sexy angle he's on for most of the project. Party's portion is also pretty good, but I'd say it's Drake that's doing most of the heavy lifting on here. I even like him repeating the same line over and over again at the end. It is a pretty long track with how it fades out, but I didn't mind the length on here. Pause. Ultimately, it's a really good close to the album that was desperately needed after some of the songs above, and I'm going to give it a strong 8.5 to wrap things off. And just like that, we have officially ranked all 21 of these sexy songs in front of us. Some were good, some were bad, and some were really great. But the question remains, is Drake back? My answer would be, are we sure Drake ever left? Kendrick told us he likes Drake with the melodies and not the Drake that acts tough. And I'm sure people are pointing out that Drizzy hiding into his R&B bag rather than rapping kind of proves his point. But I think this past year and this most recent album shows us that even in Drake's lowest lows, his appeal as an artist is never going to fully die unless he lets it. This is by no means a perfect masterpiece of an album, and there's a lot for the haters to continue to poke fun at. But as enough people continue to enjoy his work and the numbers keep on climbing, I think Aubrey's going to be living just fine. To Mr. Party Next Door, I'm sorry I was so focused on Drake throughout this video. I think you did your thing too, and I hope you're not playing with your nose as much as Kendrick Lamar suggested you are. That's going to be all for now. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know which sexy song was your favorite and any other thoughts in the comments down below. Feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed, and other than that, I will see you next time.